Recognised as the capital of Scotland in the 15th century, Edinburgh is home to the Scottish Government, Scottish Parliament, Scottish Supreme Court and residence of the monarchy. The city is centralised around the studies of medicine, law, literature, philosophy and engineering. Edinburgh is the second most populated city in Scotland and the 7th most populated in the UK. It attracts swarms of tourists each year, estimating to have had 4.9 million visits in 2018 from all over the world. This could be because people want to visit institutions such as the National Museum of Scotland, the National Library of Scotland and the Scottish National Gallery. This city is highly beneficial to tourism towards Scotland, and with its architecture, ancient history and significance, Edinburgh is a city you don't want to miss seeing for yourself. Hello everyone, I am Lewis and welcome to the second part of World Explained. Today's part is continuing the focus on Scotland's capital city. Previously, we discussed the origin of the city, how the Scottish Wars of Independence and the Great Fire of Edinburgh impacted the city, how the country united with England without any argument in the Scottish nation. Due to Edinburgh being rich in history, we will continue speaking about the significance of the city's history to how it formed the economical, thriving town seen now. We will witness the introduction of the new town, how the Victorian era affected Old Smoky, featuring stories of Birkenhead and Greyfriars Bobby. Then we will mention how something that has been cemented into the legacy of Edinburgh, and the city without it would be entirely different. We will take a look at the Edinburgh Fringe and how it not only benefits the city widely, but brings the world together. Before we begin, please support this series by liking this video and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Also, if you know anyone who would enjoy the World Explained, then share away to help the series grow. I'm anticipating diving into other cities, events, landmarks and building my knowledge on the world, which I'm wanting to do by sharing it with you guys. If you have any ideas of future episodes, please drop a comment in the comment section below. But before we move away from my birth city, let's explain Edinburgh. In the 18th century, the people of Edinburgh understood for civilization to strive forward, the city would have to implement some serious changes in layout and organisation. The city suffered during the plague because of overcrowdedness, and the city was limited the amount of expanding Edinburgh could do for its city and population. Therefore, the city had no choice but to build atop and beside the old town. From 1767 to 1890, work was done to develop a new town. This finished part of the city was seen as a masterpiece of urban planning. It is also the largest complete surviving example of a Georgian town anywhere. This part of the town connects to the old town with a bridge and certainly contrasts. The old town represents medieval architecture. It is made up of fishbone, narrow, winding streets and a stone tenement buildings dotted around. The Royal Mile is the lengthiest part of the old town and was used for merchants to set up their stands and make a living. Whereas the new town was so much more. It was the future. It was the present. It represented the high quality of architecture and with more room allowed for more people to walk freely around the city. The new town is made up of many streets and squares. To name a few, Charlotte Square is notable for its Georgian house, which can give some insights into life from 200 years ago. There's also George Street, which today is still used for concerts, dancing and lively entertainment. This then extends onto St Andrew's Square, where the gardens give locals and tourists alike a pleasant stroll through Edinburgh's greenery. Then there is the main street in the city, Princess Street. Princess Street stretches 1.2 kilometres long and with barely any buildings on the south side gives a gorgeous panoramic view of the old town and what Edinburgh used to be. Princess Street was originally to have been called St Giles Street after the patron saint of Edinburgh. However, King George III rejected the name, St Giles being the patron saint of leapers, and the name of the notorious rookery of slums in London was not seen as appropriate for the richness of the new town. The street was then named Princess Street after King George's eldest son, the Prince George, Duke of Rothesay, later identified as King George IV. During the construction of the street, the polluted waters of Norloch were drained and converted into gardens. This is where most people sit to eat their Greggs or Sadro nowadays, in a place called Princess Street Gardens. However, it started off as a private garden and wasn't open to the public until 1876. This garden is one of the city's greenest areas, and being right at the heart of Edinburgh is used for many things, such as the prime area for Christmas markets during Winter Wonderland. The reason for Princess Street being the main street in Edinburgh's new town is due to being the busiest. This was caused by a couple reasons. The street was focused as a retail centre and still is. You will find many shops for your heart's content in Princess Street. And 2, Edinburgh Waverley train station was built to give people quick access outside of the crowded streets in the central city. The station was officially opened in April 1866 and was actually heavily critical. People questioned, why would you build a dusty old train line immediately after spending large amounts of money to create a beautiful Princess Street Gardens? However, they just had to deal with it because during this era, railways took off in a big way, and Edinburgh Waverley is a prime example of this. It was built with its own hotel, the Balmoral is what it's known as nowadays, to attract even more people to travel in and out of the city via train. The Princess Mall was installed in 1985. Beforehand it was a food market, so still aided in finding lunch when out and about the city. Overall, the new town is definitely a juxtaposition to the old town. However, together they create a unique phenomenon. Both towns became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999. Now let's move away from that part of this city and focus on the National Monument of Scotland. This monument was prideful, it gave the city prestige, and overall it fundamentally looked epic, overlooking the entire city atop of Carlton Hill. However, did you know it wasn't always supposed to be constructed on top of this hill? Initially, the Highland Society of Scotland called for the construction to take place on the mound, but it was changed for the scenic Carlton Hill. In January 1822, a proposal was put forward to erect a facsimile of the Parthenon at a cost of £42,000. The appeal found support amongst many prominent Edinburgh residents such as Sir Walter Scott, Lord Henry Cockburn and Lord Francis Jeffrey. The purpose of this power structure was to be the national memorial towards the nation's soldiers and sailors that died fighting in the Napoleonic Wars from 1803 to 1815. If finished, it would have had the inscription, a memorial of the past and incentive to the future heroism of the men of Scotland. The reason for its incompletion is mainly down to funds. Unfortunately, they couldn't afford to continue work and had to leave it in the state seen today. This saw outrage across the city in 1826. It earned the nicknames Scotland's Folly, Edinburgh's Disgrace, the Pride and Poverty of Scotland and Edinburgh's Folly. There were big plans in place for this Greek-inspired monument though. Originally, the building was going to have extensive catacombs and be a burial place for noteworthy figures. There was also ideas set to complete the rest of the building, dedicating it to Queen Victoria, those who died in World War II, or being turned into the Scottish National Gallery or Scottish Parliament. In my opinion, the structure being left the way it is what keeps it unique and physically impressive. It is a simple reminder that you can still look strong and powerful even if you aren't perfect. Speaking of Queen Victoria, let's discuss what the Victorian era was like for the capital. I don't know if it is just due to the black and white photos or what, but for some reason I always see Victorian times as being quite eerie and filled with thievery, poverty and illness. There was a lot of that during those times, but there was also inventions that have shaped our future. The telephone was designed by Alexander Graham Bell, and Sir Sandford Fleming figured out the Universal Standard Time. During these times, Edinburgh was nicknamed Old Smoky due to industrial factories opening up similarly to the majority of the UK. However, it did have its toll of death in the city, not as gory as the medieval ages, but certainly as grim. London may have the mystery of Jack the Ripper to scare their children, however, Edinburgh has the documented living proof of Burke and Hare. Edinburgh was a leading European centre of anatomical study in the early 19th century, in a time where the demand for cadavers led to a shortfall in legal supply. Scottish law required that corpses used for medical research should only come from those who had died in prison, suicide victims, or from foundlings and orphans. The shortage of corpses led to an increase in body snatching by what was known as resurrection men. Measures to ensure graves were left undisturbed, such as the use of mortise safes, exacerbated the shortage. William Burke and William Hare were infamous as resurrection men. Burke was born in 1792 in Urney, Ireland, and was one of 2 sons in a middle-class family. He joined the British Army, and after a short-lived marriage with his first wife, he moved to Scotland, starting afresh as a labourer working on the Union Canal. Burke was raised as a Roman Catholic, but during his time in Scotland often visited the Presbyterian religious meetings at Edinburgh's Grass Market. He was seldomly seen without a Bible. William Hare's date of birth is unknown, but thought to be around 1792 and 1804. He was born in Newry, Northern Ireland. When he moved to Edinburgh in the mid-1820s, he worked as a coalman's assistant. He lodged at Tanner's Close in a house of a man named Logue and his wife Margaret Laird in the nearby Westport area of the town. When Logue died in 1826, Hare may have married Margaret. Based on contemporary accounts, Brian Bailey in his History of the Murders describes Hare as illiterate and uncouth, a lean, quarrelsome, violent and immoral character with the scars from old wounds above his head and brow. Burke and Hare met in 1827 when Burke went to Pennycook in Midlothian to work on the harvest, where he met Hare. The men became friends and Burke moved into Tanner's Lodge with Hare once returning to Edinburgh. They then gained a reputation of hard drinking and boisterous behaviour. On the 29th of November 1827, Donald, a lodger in Hare's house, died of dropsy shortly before receiving a quarterly army pension while owing £4 of back rent. After Hare bemoaned his financial loss to Burke, the pair decided to sell Donald's body to one of the local anatomists. A carpenter provided a coffin for a burial which was to be paid for by the local parish. After he left, the pair opened the coffin, removed the body, which they hid under the bed, filled the coffin with bark from a local tanner's and resealed it. After dark, on the day the coffin was removed for burial, they took the corpse to Edinburgh University where they looked for a purchaser. According to Burke's later testimony, they asked for directions to Professor Monroe, but a student sent him to Knox's premises in Surgeon Square. Although the men dealt with juniors when discussing the possibility of selling the body, it was Knox who arrived to fix the price at £7 10 shillings. Hare received £4 5 shillings, while Burke took the balance of £3 5 shillings. Hare's larger share was to cover his loss from Donald's unpaid rent. According to Burke's official confession, as he and Hare left the university, one of Knox's assistants told him that the anatomist would be glad to see them again when they had another to dispose of. And that was how the pair became the sadistic, money-greedy murderers. They would eventually kill their victims, send the corpses to Robert Knox, who would dissect them and give the duo money. This continued for 10 months from 1828, and in total they killed 16 people. They would also grave dig and pass the bodies to Knox to gain additional money. They are a truly spooky story learned at a young age in Scotland. They were both eventually arrested and executed in 1829. Burke's body was later dissected at the Anatomical Museum of Edinburgh Medical School. His skeleton still remains there today. You can also visit the house of Robert Knox, where he did the unforgivable dissections. Knox was sentenced to death because apparently there was not enough proof to show that he had clear personal affiliation with Burke and Hare. This caused outrage and citizens actually mobbed his house, attacking and destroying the windows. After the death of his wife, he fled to London, where he published several books before dying in 1862 at the age of 71. Sir Walter Scott, novelist and poet, was quite intrigued into the Westport murders. But on a brighter note, here's the reason for the epic Scott monument seen in Princes Street. Following his death in 1832, a competition was held to design a monument dedicated to him. An unlikely entrant went onto the pseudonym John Morville, the medieval architect of Melrose Abbey. Morville was in fact George Meikle Kemp, 45-year-old joiner, draftsman and self-taught architect. He had feared that his lack of architectural qualifications and reputation would disqualify him, but his design was popular with the competition's judges and they awarded him the contract to construct the monument in 1838. John Steele was commissioned to design a monumental statue of Scott to rest in the centre space within the town's forecolumn. It is made from white Carrara marble and shows Scott seated, resting from writing one of his works with a quill pen. his dog Maida by his side. The monument carries 64 figures of characters from Scott's novels. The foundation stone was laid on the 15th of August 1840. Construction began in 1841 following permission by Parliament's Monument to Sir Walter Scott Act and ran for nearly 4 years. It was completed in the August of 1844 with Kempson placing the final piece in August of the year. The total cost was just over £16,154. The monument was inaugurated on the 15th of August 1846, but George Rico Kemp was absent. He had drastically fallen into the Union Canal while walking home from the site and drowned on the foggy evening of 6th of March 1844. Poor guy lied about his identity, luckily got given the job and wasn't even there to see the legacy of it. The Scott Monument is a beauty in Scottish architecture, and even though it doesn't serve much purpose, it gives a stunning view of the old new towns from the top. Another historically significant part of Edinburgh's Victorian era is the sad story of Greyfriars Bobby. If you cried at Marley and me, aka everyone, then you will find the story excruciatingly difficult to listen to. But it is an interesting story nevertheless. The best known version of the story is that Bobby belonged to John Gray, who worked for the Edinburgh City Police as a night watchman. When John Gray sadly died, he was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard, the kirkyard surrounding Greyfriars Kirk in the old town of Edinburgh. Bobby then became known locally, spending the rest of his life sitting on his master's grave. In 1867, the Lord Provost of Edinburgh, Sir William Chambers, who was also director of the Scottish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, paid for Bobby's licence and gave the dog a collar, now in the Museum of Edinburgh. Bobby is said to have sat by the grave for 14 years. He had died in 1872 and a necropsy concluded he had died from jaw cancer. He was buried just inside the gate of Greyfriars Kirkyard, not far from John Gray's grave. A year later, the English philanthropist Lady Burdett Coutts was charmed by the story and had a drinking fountain topped with Bobby's statue erected opposite the entrance to the churchyard to commemorate him. This statue's nose has unfortunately fallen due to tourists robbing it. Fins do decay over time, but please don't increase the process by touching statues. Glare at them from afar. Besides, most statues in Scotland have been shit on numerous times by the local pigeons.
Down in the valley where the green grass grows, where Mary Glee she grows and grows, she grows, she grows, she grows so sweet that she calls for a lover at the end of the street.
Substantial changes to the city of Edinburgh in the 20th century include the Borough of Leith merging with Edinburgh in 1920, celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. World War II impacted the city in similar ways to the rest of Britain. They had to evacuate, they had to hide from bombings, and multiple air raid shelters were implemented in Princess Street Gardens. Children would have been evacuated to the borders or the Highlands. The biggest event nearby was when the Nazis bombed the Firth of Forth. 6 weeks into the war, the first air attack over Britain took place over the Firth of Forth. 9 German planes took the British air defence completely by surprise. Busy with a gun drill at the time in preparation for war, anti-air raid gunners quickly swapped their dummy munitions for live ammo. Despite missing their intended target, the Royal Navy fleet based at Rosyth, the Germans did manage to damage the HMS Southampton, HMS Mohawk and the HMS Edinburgh. 16 soldiers lost their lives and another 44 were injured. Supermarine Spitfires from the 603 Squadron City of Edinburgh and the 602 City of Glasgow managed to shoot down the first enemy aircrafts over Britain. Heading into modern Edinburgh, the summer festival that takes over the entire city debuted in 1947. Edinburgh Fringe, or Festival, is the world's largest festival and is only surpassed by the Olympics and FIFA World Cup in terms of global ticketed events. According to author Michael Dale, as an event, it has done more to place Edinburgh in the forefront of world cities than anything else. The Fringe started life when 8 theatre companies turned up uninvited to the inaugural Edinburgh International Festival in 1947. With the International Festival using the city's major venues, these companies took over smaller, alternative venues for their productions. 7 performed in Edinburgh and 1 undertook a version of the medieval morality play Everyman in Dunfermline Abbey, about 20 miles north across the River Forth in Fife. These groups aimed to take advantage of the large assembled theatre crowds to showcase their alternative theatre. Although, at the time, it was not recognised as such, this was the first Edinburgh Festival Fringe. This meant that two defining features of the future Fringe were established at the very beginning: the lack of official invitations to perform and the use of unconventional venues. Originally, these groups referred to themselves as the Festival Adjuncts, and were also referred to as the semi-official festival. It was not until the following year, 1948, that Robert Kemp, a Scottish playwright and journalist, is credited with coining the title Fringe, when he wrote during the second Edinburgh International Festival. Round the fringe of official festival drama, there seems to be more private enterprise than before. I'm afraid some of us are not going to be at home during the evenings. Currently, the Fringe is Edinburgh's biggest moneymaker and also allows for a wide range of diversity. I've witnessed acts from Israel, Canada, and much more places around the world. There are free acts out there on the streets, and there are also plays tried out in theatres. Broadway musical 6 began in the Edinburgh Fringe. Furthermore, names like Billy Connolly, Stephen Fry and Mike Myers started their careers in the Fringe. In 2018, the festival spanned 25 days and featured more than 55,000 performances of 3,548 different shows in 317 venues. Unfortunately, the world's critical condition has meant that this year's festival has been cancelled. However, that just means next year's will be huge. Definitely come to this extraordinary annual event for yourself at least once. Finally, I want to mention that the Scottish Parliament building that sits across from the Holyrood Palace and just outside Arthur's Seat opened in 2004 and held its first debate on the 7th of September of that year. It is where all the ongoings and directions for the country are recognised. During the Scottish referendum of 2014, many voters took to Holyrood Park to protest their opinion on independence. The city is vastly improving each day. The trams returned to the city in 2017 after a hiatus from the previous time in 1956. Buildings and bridges are being kept in good condition as the city does attract tourists, and so it should. Edinburgh is beautifully historic. You can see modernity. You can see medievalness. You can indulge in the expressive arts and entertainment that the city provides, while snacking on a deep-fried Mars bar and enhancing your Harry Potter knowledge. Yes guys, Edinburgh is highly influential towards J.K. Rowling's wizardly novels. It's the perfect spot for Potter fans to see how the books were shaped. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this fantastic city. Please go visit if you ever have the opportunity, and if you learned something from the two videos I made on the Scottish capital, then please leave a like and subscribe to see more. All of my social media links are in the description below, and I have a website dedicated to my travels over this eye-opening world. Please request for more worldly explained documentaries, and I will see you all with the next one. Crazy time out, goodbye everyone. Pleasant stroll through Edinburgh's greenery. I sneeze every single time when I'm doing this, by the way, dearie me.